It's time to head to a little town in Maine where something weird is going on. Here are 19 reasons to watch the 1979 miniseries of Salem's Lot. Hi everyone, I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram. Welcome to my channel, and this is the place where I talk to you about Stephen King. Now, I spent the last couple of years talking about all of Stephen King's books, which means I'm now on to the point where I'm talking about Stephen King's movies and adaptations. And in this video, I'm going to give you 19 reasons to check out the 1979 miniseries adaptation of Salem's Lot, King's infamous vampire novel, of course. So we'll get to that in a moment, but first, a couple of things for me to plug. If you hit the link up there, you can subscribe to my newsletter, and just for doing that, as a thank you, you get an ebook of my mini collection Mirrored plus 10 Tiny Tales of Terror, and from then on, you get a nice email in your inbox every single week, an indie horror author to check out, a short story from me, and a few other random things as well. Do go and check that out. If you like indie horror author recommendations as well, and you've got to check out the Constant Writers podcast. You can find that right here on this channel, or you can find it wherever you get your podcast. That's me talking to indie horror authors about their writing, and of course, about Stephen King. And lastly, don't forget to pick up a copy of my book, The Ultimate Stephen King Quiz Book, which I published last year. You can get it on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble. Links are in the description below. And if you've already picked up a copy, thank you so much. Why not leave a rating and review on any of those places, or on Goodreads too, because it all really helps. Okay, so as I mentioned, in this video I'm going to be giving you 19 reasons to check out the 1979 miniseries adaptation of Salem's Lot. And there will be a spoiler alert in the middle, so you can bail if you need to bail. Before the spoiler alert, it's more trivia about the miniseries, history, a bit about the cast and crew, that kind of stuff. After the spoiler warning, there's a little bit more look at how closely it resembles the book, and I pick out my favourite scenes, favourite lines, if there's any Easter eggs to mention, all of those kind of things. So they don't explicitly spoil the movie, or the miniseries in this case, but they might be things you want to keep secret until you've watched it for the first time. So you'll get the spoiler alert, and then it's up to you whether you stick around or not. Hope that sounds good. Here are 19 reasons to watch the 1979 miniseries of Salem's Lot. So clocking in at 3 hours across 2 parts, this miniseries gives itself enough time and space to be a fairly decent adaptation of a 400-page novel, and the result is exactly that. You get a sense of the town, you get a sense of the people and of the weird things that are going on. The atmosphere is chilly throughout, and in parts, it's fucking scary. Now, although this actually ended up being a miniseries, the original plan when Warner Brothers acquired the rights for this was for it to be a movie, with George A. Romero directing. But then 2 other vampire movies got announced in 1979, and they switched things up and made it into a miniseries, at which point Romero decided to bail because he was worried he wouldn't be able to achieve what he wanted to achieve while working under network TV restrictions. So, in stepped one Tobe Hooper to direct. Just a few years off the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he was given a budget of $4 million, and it got filmed in California over a couple of months during the summer of '79. So for me, one of the best things about this miniseries is its atmosphere, and that was almost a necessity because it was a miniseries going out on network television. It couldn't be full of gore and terrifying horror. It had to have that ongoing sense of unease and chill that creeps into your bones. And Hooper and the team behind this really lean into that, and I think the effect is really pretty impressive. So despite being shot in California, the town here does a fairly decent impression, at least for this Brit, of what a town in Maine might look like. The Marston house in particular is very scary, and was actually a custom-built facade stuck on the front of an existing house that cost $100,000 to build, which, in those days, in 1979, $100,000 was literally enough money to build and furnish an entire new house from scratch, rather than just put a front on an existing one. So let's move on to the cast, and we've got to talk about David Soul in the role of lead hunk Ben Mears. That's David Soul of Starsky and Hutch fame, of course. Now, he is great in this. I have no issues with his performance, but for me, he just doesn't look the part. He doesn't match up with what I think of Ben Mears in my head. He just doesn't look like a writer.
Bill, do you believe in ghosts?
Ghosts, no.
Witches? Wizards?
No.
Werewolves?
Of course not. Vampires?
So we also have James Mason as Straker, and he is exceptional. He proves that English accents make the best villains, and he was absolutely reveling in playing a really, really evil character, which was something he was apparently super pumped to do, and you can see it in his performance.
I'm under some suspicion.
Well, yes.
The disappearance of the boy.
So a couple of other shout-outs have to go to Bonnie Bedelia as Susan Norton and Lance Kerwin as Mark Petrie, who are both really well matched to the source material and both give excellent performances. One more note on the cast. Apparently Reggie Nalder, who plays Barlow, was less than happy with how much screen time his character gets in the final cut. I mean, Reggie, you got like 90 seconds out of the 3 hours. Get over yourself. So last off, before we go into spoiler territory, the payoff with this miniseries is very similar to the payoff with the book. We spend all this time in this slow burn, growing dread atmosphere, and then we're rewarded with these explosive moments of horror and a really exciting conclusion. You get that in the miniseries as well, so if you like the book, you'll like this adaptation, despite it being very of its time. Right, consider this your spoiler alert if you've not watched this miniseries yet. You don't want to know in more detail how this differs from the book or my favourite scenes or favourite lines or Easter eggs, then this is your chance to get out. But if you're sticking around, then hey, do that, because I've got some more reasons for you to watch Salem's Lot. So let's start off with how it differs from the book. And one of the big changes is around cast, which is unsurprising really. The book is a big, unwieldy cast, and for a tight miniseries, that was never going to work. So characters are merged, some are deleted, but all of the changes here don't affect your enjoyment of the book. They're all smart, they all work. The contentious change, however, was the appearance of Barlow. So in the book, Barlow is this suave, human-looking vampire who can seduce all of these residents of Salem's Lot. In the miniseries, we get something that looks like Nosferatu and a Smurf had a one-night stand and birthed this weird, nasty vampire, who is good for jump scares but ultimately looks ridiculous, and yet is an icon of horror. So, how do you judge it? The talking Barlow, that's another change from the book. In the book, Barlow was hiding in the basement of the boarding house where Ben was staying, whereas in the miniseries, he's in the basement of the Musson house, which makes way more sense. They've been building this house up as this place of evil, and it's just easier to follow on screen, right?
The small tale, witches, incubi.
Vampires?
In Salem's Lot.
At the very, very end of this, following on, I guess, from Carrie's snappy ending, we get another snappy ending with this, with the vampire of Susan being killed by Ben and Mark down in Mexico. It's a nice little at the end, just to keep you on your toes. So, in terms of trying to pick out my favourite scenes, there are quite a few iconic ones in this. First one I want to mention is the confrontation between Father Callahan and the bad guys in Mark Petrie's kitchen. All of the face the master stuff, the use of darkness and light, the jump scares, the tension, it's all really, really good.
Throw away your cross, face the master, your faith against his faith. Could you do that?
However, the gold medal, of course, has to go to Danny Glick floating outside the window. A scene that is an absolute icon of horror, and one that was shot with Danny Glick standing on a boom rather than using wires, and also partially shot in reverse to give it that weird, trippy, unsettling feel. Like I said, it is iconic, it's never not effective, and never not terrifying. As for my favourite line, well, I guess this is because of listening to the Losers Club podcast for so many years and having it in my ears all the time, but it has to be, "Look at me, teacher." Now, as with Carrie, there aren't loads of Easter eggs in this, but I did find one. It's a bit of a stretch, but go with me. So we have Julie Cobb playing Bonnie Sawyer in this miniseries. She was later married to James Cromwell, who, while they were married, would not only play Warden Hal Moores in 1999's The Green Mile, but linking it to Salem's Lot, he also plays Father Callahan in the 2004 remake of Salem's Lot. So there we go. And of course, he was also in Babe. That'll do, pig. So I'll wrap up by saying that this miniseries is genuinely good and genuinely worth watching. It doesn't deliver the same cinematic brilliance that we saw with Carrie, but it was never going to do that. However, in the context of this being a 3-hour network TV miniseries from 1979, what they've managed to achieve here is really, really impressive. And at its best, it's packed full of these iconic scenes, these iconic moments that still deliver way more than literally thousands of horror movies that have come out since have tried to do. It is well worth dedicating a bit of your time to settle in and check out. So there we go, 19 reasons to watch the 1979 miniseries of Salem's Lot. Do let me know what you think of this series and have my video in the comments below. A few things to plug before I leave you. Of course, come and say hi on Instagram where I'm at Dave Musson if you want to come and chat Stephen King. Check out any of the videos I've done on this channel. Hey, you might want to check out my 19 reasons to read Salem's Lot, which you can do right up there. And of course, a few things to plug. Check out the Constant Writers podcast. You can either find the playlist for all of the episodes on this channel, or you can find it wherever you get your podcasts to listen to normally. Sign up to my newsletter using the link in the description. You'll get my mini collection for free just for signing up, and then you'll get a nice email from me every week. And of course, pick up your copy of the Ultimate Stephen King quiz book, which I put out last year. I really spent 2 years of my life writing it, so, go and pick it up. And if you've got one already, thank you. Why not leave it a rating or review? That would really help. Next time, we've got ourselves a job for the winter. We're going to explore whether the film we're looking at is the best horror movie of all time or the worst Stephen King adaptation ever. I guess we'll just have to find out when we get there.